All right, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Healthy Living, Eating. I forget what we call this show because it's either way, we're making a good, healthy meal today. I'm your host, Jeremy, as always, your friendly neighborhood kitchen man. So today, we're going to be making a little Halloween-ish themed dish. So we're going to be using black rice or purple rice, forbidden rice. It's called a lot of things. Either way, it's black in the bag, and then when it's done cooking, it's like a nice deep purple. So that'll be our dark color for the Halloween theme. And then we're going to do a little orange chicken thighs. We do a lot of chicken breasts, so I figured this time we'll try out some thighs. I know a lot of people are kind of hit or miss when it comes to dark meat, but thighs are usually a little more tender and easier to cook, and I think they're tastier. So we'll start with that. So as far as ingredients, you're going to need, obviously, your black rice. This stuff I found at Albertsons. Most stores should have it, but it's just black colored rice. It'll all usually pretty much be the same thing. For our sauce, we're going to need some oranges, soy sauce, a little bit of honey. I've got some fresh ginger here, just a little knob, and then fresh garlic. And then I've got my chicken thighs here, just soaking up all that extra moisture in the paper towel. We want to get a good hard sear on them, so it's best to get all that moisture out of there. So to start, we'll start with the rice because that's going to take about half an hour. By the time you start the rice and finish the rice, it should be this whole deal here. So I've gone ahead already and started it just so we don't have to sit here and wait for it. But basically, you're going to do about a 2-to-1 ratio from water to rice. So you want about a cup of rice to 2 cups of water, roughly. And then if you do a little less, just a little less of each, as long as you have half the amount of rice to water. And then you can throw in like a little just squirt teaspoon of oil. Where did I put it? I went ahead and put some of the sesame oil in the rice, so it'll help it give a nice nutty, toasty flavor. So you'll need sesame oil, but if you don't have sesame, you can just use regular olive oil. And I think that's it. As far as our chicken seasoning, we're just going to do a little salt and paprika. It's kind of like a super, super basic blackening. We're not going to do all the herbs and stuff that go in it, just the paprika for some color. So we'll get started. As I said, we got the rice going. You just want to bring it to a boil, and as soon as it boils, turn the heat down to low, keep the lid on, just let it sit back there and simmer for 20 minutes, half an hour. It can take quite a while, especially this wild grain rice. But the good thing about the black rice, it's got more like antioxidants, and it's a little healthier for you than just minute rice. So first, we're going to move on to our orange sauce. So you'll need a little mixing bowl if you want to keep it simple, a little strainer. And I'm going to do a double batch today. So I've got 2 oranges, but you can make it work with just 1. And if you have a zester at home, you can definitely zest these. I would recommend it. I think I left mine at work. So we'll improvise, and you can take like a little peel of it. You just don't want to get too deep into that skin. And you won't need a whole lot since you're getting a lot out of this zest here. But you just want to go as shallow as you can with a peeler and get a couple little strips of your orange peel. And what that's going to do is get some of the oil out of the orange and just some of that good orangey flavor. So it's not just straight sweetness. This will get a little bitterness to it. But like I said, you don't want to go too deep into the white part. You want to try to just get that orange off the outside. Otherwise, it'll be really bitter, and we don't want that. So next, what we're going to do is once you've zested it or taken a couple peels off, you're just going to cut it in half so that you can see the inside. And if you have a juicer, you can juice it. I just like to use the old spoon. So I'll give it a good squeeze, get some of that initial juice out of there, and then take my spoon and kind of mash up those little juice pods and get all that good flavor out of there. Oop. And so I'm just squeezing the orange and twisting the spoon, and it kind of helps pop those little juice pods individually. But if you have a juicer, this works really well. And if you don't have a strainer, you just want to go back and pick out the seeds. But if you get some little clumps of orange in there, like little bits of fruit, that's perfectly fine. That's just going to add a little texture and extra flavor to your sauce. And if you don't want to use fresh oranges for this, you can definitely just grab some off-the-shelf orange juice. But this will give you that good natural orange flavor. So just go ahead and squeeze as much juice out of these things as you can. And these were big oranges, so I thought they were going to be super juicy, but there's a lot of skin on the outside, so there's not a whole lot of orange inside. Oop. There we go. Okay, I'll do that with my second one as well. And what we can do, I've shown you before, I think, just roll your citrus a little bit. Anything like oranges or lemons or limes. This will kind of loosen up the juices on the inside. And it'll soften it up a little bit. So that way when you cut in, it should be much easier to squeeze that juice out. And we'll just go back and give them a little squish. There we go. And you just want to try to get as much out of there as you can. And since we're gonna try to use the zest and the peel and everything as much as we can, you don't really have to save any of the orange, so you can just kind of brush it up like so. And I like to get a little rough with them because you're squeezing out those oils too. So a lot of the orange flavor is going to come from the oils in the peel and like beneath the skin, not all the juice. If you get just the juice, it's going to be kind of like a watered down orange flavor almost, but some of that orange oil from the peel and just from giving it a good squeeze will give you that good, slightly bitter, tart, citrusy flavor. So then I've got my strainer. Everything's out of there. And then, so we got a good amount of juice in there. We got probably about a half a cup of juice, which is about all we need. And then we're going to move on to a couple other things here. So we're going to add a little bit of honey, a little bit of soy sauce. And before we get to those, we're going to get our garlic and ginger. So with the garlic, I've got 4 little pods here, or 4 little cloves. If you're just doing a single orange sized batch, you can just do 2 little garlic cloves. So I'm just going to chop these up real fine. And we want to get these nice and minced up. If you have a garlic press, that'll work really well, and you can just mash the garlic straight into your sauce. I don't have one of those because I just prefer to chop it up, but those garlic presses are really nice. And you could do the same thing with the ginger as well. But for this, I'm just going to chop it up real fine. A bit of good mince. And this will also add just a little bit of texture to it. So we're going to take those nice minced up cloves there, put those in the sauce and let them marinate a little bit. Now we've got our ginger. It's just a knob is what they call it. Mine's about an inch knob. That's usually how they measure the size of these, but you can take a peeler and peel the skin off. The other way that I like to do it, if I have a bigger piece, you can take a spoon and you just peel it with like the sharp side of a spoon. And that helps really well when you want to get into these little nooks and crannies and stuff. But luckily I got a pretty flat piece, so this peeler will work just fine. But the spoon also helps you keep from taking too much of your ginger meat out of there. If you have one of those real lumpy knobs and stuff. But luckily this one's nice and flat and easy to peel, so the peeler works perfect. Get all that skin out of there. You don't want to have any of your ginger peel on there because it's just really bitter and dirt flavored. So you want to try to get all that out of there. And then we're going to need about a tablespoon of minced ginger or ginger paste. You can also buy like tubes of ginger and garlic paste, but if you're in a hurry, those work really well. But for this, I'm just going to chop it real fine. This isn't the ideal knife for this, but my good one's in the dishwasher, so we'll make it work. And if you also want to just use garlic powder and ginger powder, you can do that as well, but you're going to get a lot more fresh flavor from this, obviously fresh stuff. And it'll help get some of those oils out of there, and it's a little healthier for you. You're going to get some of that good ginger juice to help with tummy aches and stuff like that. So we're just going to get about a tablespoon's worth. I'm doing a slightly bigger batch, so this should be enough. A little extra. And that might be a little too much. Let's take a little off the top. All right. Now we've got our little base ingredients here. I'm letting my little orange peel just kind of marinate here in a bit, and I'll take these out before I start cooking it, but I just want to get some of those oils out. And now we're going to add a little bit of honey and soy sauce. So we're going to need about 2 tablespoons of each. I'm going a little bigger, so I think we'll just do 2 tablespoons looks like enough actually. So we can probably cut back a little bit on the single size recipe, but a lot of this is also a taste thing. So if you want it a little saltier, a little more soy sauce. If you want a little sweeter, a little more honey. What I should have done is put the oil in here first so that the honey just pours right out. But we'll do about 2 tablespoons of honey, soy sauce. Let's see if I can get that stuff out of there. All right, and then mix that up a little bit. Then I'm just gonna add like 2 teaspoons of the sesame oil. Once again, if you just want to use regular olive oil, that works as well. And this stuff is pretty potent, so I might even do like a half and half. So we'll do a little sesame oil. Actually, I don't need 2 teaspoons. I just need 1 because the other teaspoon is in my rice. So I think the 1 teaspoon of sesame oil in here is perfect. And the sesame oil is pretty potent on its own, so you don't need quite as much as you would with like olive oil or anything. And now that I've got everything else in there, I'm going to pull these little orange peels out. And you could absolutely just probably cook these in with the sauce if you wanted to. And they would, I assume, be edible, but I just don't want too much bitterness to come from them because that's where all the oil is, and that stuff tends to be the bitter side of the orange. We're just going to let this stuff kind of marinate together. So we'll set that aside for now. And then we're gonna go on to our chicken thighs. So like I said, I've had these sitting here in this paper towel for a few minutes. I'm gonna turn my pan on. And we just want our saute pan to like a medium high heat because we want to give these a good sear on the outside before we throw our sauce in. And then we'll cook them the rest of the way in the sauce. So one of the downsides to getting thighs, even if you get the boneless, skinless, trimmed ones, you're gonna have some little fat clumps on the outside, but that's perfectly fine. They're really easy to cut off. So you just go and cut off any of the little tails of fat sitting on the side. This stuff's really good if you're like roasting it or barbecuing it, because in that longer cooking process, you'll kind of render out some of this fat and it'll just add a little extra flavor. But obviously we're trying to eat healthy and consume the least amount of fat as we can. Then we're gonna just trim this stuff off, especially since we're gonna kind of quick cook it a little bit. And we're gonna almost boil it or simmer it in that orange sauce, and we don't want all that fat to leak into our sauce. Chicken fat's not overly greasy, but it'll definitely change the texture a little bit. So there's actually not a whole lot of fat on these, so they're pretty good. But I do just have these like little almost knuckle shaped things on the end. There we go. And these smaller ones, these look good. Okay. Perfect. That one's actually just about good to go. All right. So I've taken just all those little fat caps kind of off the ends and stuff. There's got a little hider on the side. Perfect. Now I'm just going to go ahead and pat them dry one more time. Lay them out as flat as you can. This guy's kind of folded up on itself. All right. So just pat them all dry, get that extra moisture off the top there. And then we're going to take a little bit of salt. And you can just sprinkle it over the top. You don't have to measure anything. Just get a nice seasoning pinch over the top of each one. You don't want to go too heavy, but that salt's going to help us get a little crust on the outside. Same thing. Oh, it is just not taken off all the way. And then I just have a little bit of smoked paprika. We don't have to go too heavy on this stuff either. Just like a nice light dusting on top. Let's see. All right, and then we'll flip these all over, do the same thing on the other side. Just a light tapping of salt on each one. And then a little light tap of paprika on there. There it goes. And so if you're doing like an actual blackened chicken, it's like paprika and chili powder and thyme and oregano and herbs and stuff like that. Garlic powder, onion powder. And that stuff, when it cooks, it turns the outside like that nice black barbecue-y color. But a lot of the work is being done by that paprika. So we'll see if we can get a nice, just simple blackening with just a little salt and paprika here. I'm gonna kind of rub that stuff on the outside there, but you don't gotta do anything too crazy, just a nice light color on top. All right. And so I just have like a little half teaspoon of oil in my saute pan to get these things going. And it should be nice and hot. There we go, that's what we want to hear. Let's start with these bigger ones. All right, and we can let those sear for like 2 minutes on each side. You don't want to go too crazy and burn them, but they should be good just like that. And while we let those cook, we'll take a look at the rice here. I've had it cooking for about half an hour now. But you just want to let it cook for about 30 minutes until it's hard to see, obviously, because it's black, but there's still a little bit of water here at the bottom. But what I'm going to do is just throw the lid on and leave it with the heat off and let it sit for a little bit. And I'll just leave it on super, super low, like the melt setting, and the rice will absorb the last of that moisture. We'll give the chicken like 30 more seconds. We can go a little longer. I think my pan was still heating up, so we'll go about 3 minutes for the sear on that chicken on each side. We also want to make sure it cooks all the way through, so that'll help. Chicken hands. And now that my chicken's shrunk a little bit, I'm just going to throw these last two in there. They're a little smaller, so they should cook a little quicker. So you want to try not to overcrowd your pan. That's why I didn't put all of it in at once. That'll make it hard to get that good sear on there, just because it's gonna drop the heat in the pan so quickly that it basically just steams the whatever meat you're cooking. Chicken board here. All right, so about 3 minutes on that first side, and we got a good, nice blackened crust on them. So let's kind of do the same thing on the other side. Let them go for a few minutes. Flip those smaller ones over. All right, and in order to help them cook a little quicker, we'll just throw that lid on top. That's gonna hold in all the steam and the heat and stuff and help them cook a little faster. Throw this raw chicken, whatever, out of here. So if you have a nice white bottom plate, this dish is gonna look really good for that. All right, so now I'm gonna turn the heat on my chicken down to like a medium low before we add our sauce. I'm gonna let it cool down for a sec because we have that honey and that orange juice in there. It's gonna burn really fast if it's too hot. So we just wanna let the pan calm down a little bit. But you can see we get that nice blackened crust, get it under the light. And that's kind of what we're looking for. There we go, that's a good one. So they're not burnt, they might look like it, but it's just that seasoning on there getting cooked really well. So I'm gonna flip these all back over to their flat sides. So here we go, we got a nice big pan of chicken here. And they still got a while to cook, so what we're gonna do is add the sauce, let them simmer for a little bit. So we've got our nice little bowl of sauce that we made earlier. And you know what? I probably don't need this, but I do have a little bit of orange juice left. So I'm gonna add just a little bit of this at-home orange juice. There we go. Just so I have a little bit extra sauce in here in case it all reduces away. And you can even add just a splash of water, which normally you won't have to do, but since I have so much chicken in here compared to how much sauce I have, this will just help it cook a little longer before it is reduced to syrup. Here we go. Perfect. So we're just gonna let those kind of simmer in that juice for like 3 or 4 minutes. And what that's gonna do is continue cooking the chicken all the way through on the inside without burning the outside. And then while it cooks, that sauce is gonna reduce. So when we poured it in, it's pretty liquidy and watery, but as it continues to cook, it's gonna turn out more like orange chicken that you would find like at a Chinese restaurant where it's kind of thick and syrupy and you don't have to put cornstarch in there or anything because the honey and the orange juice have that natural sugar in them, which will just thicken up as it cooks. So while we wait for that, let's check on this rice. And this stuff can be kind of tricky just with how much water you need to add to it. So if you can tip it over and there's not a whole lot of water, that's good. I do have a little bit in there, so what we'll do is just let it keep soaking it up. The recommended instructions on the bag are bring to a boil, and then immediately turn down to like a low for about half an hour. And then after most of your water's gone, turn the heat off and then let it rest just in the pot with no heat whatsoever for about another 10 minutes. So altogether, that's like 50 minutes of cooking. That's why I started it a little bit early, but it's definitely not your at-home 5-minute rice. But this stuff is going to have a nice nuttier flavor. It's got a little more nutrients and antioxidants and stuff in it, and it's black, so it looks cool. But take a look at this chicken. Oh, and I'm just going to flip all these thighs back over. This will just help cook the other section of the inside. Cool, and I've got that on like a medium heat, and I did add a little extra liquid to it just so it would keep going for a little bit, but we can just let it cook until it reduces to a nice thickness. I'll keep the lid on for just another minute or so. Right here, perfect. Okay. Take the lid off. And then while you have the lid on, since you're holding in all that steam and that moisture and stuff, it's not going to reduce as quickly just because all that steam is rising up and falling back into the sauce. So once you take the lid off, it's going to reduce a little quicker. And you just kind of want to keep turning these thighs or breasts, whatever meat you happen to use, just to help them continuously get coated on both sides and kind of absorb that sauce as they cook. So that's getting just about there. Like I said, I have a little more chicken in the pan than I normally would, so it's taking a little extra time just to reduce and make sure we cook those things all the way. But we'll take a look at our rice here, and I have just a little bit of moisture at the bottom, but I wouldn't even say that there's any water left in here, so that was about perfect. And then what you want to do after you rest your rice for that 10 minutes with no heat is just fluff it like I just did. Most rices will tell you to do that because what it's going to do is get any of those dry grains that are stuck into whatever leftover moisture you have. And it's also going to mix up any clumps. So that way you don't have like a nice hot pocket of rice that just turns into a big gooey ball. But you want to kind of get some air in there and it'll allow to cool off evenly. But it looks like we are pretty much set on this, and I don't see any moisture, so it's going to be hard to tell, obviously, because it's black. Let's see if I can get it in light. Nope. But you shouldn't have any water pouring out, which is good. And it's going to look like a nice just pile of black rice. It tends to be a little stickier than your traditional rice, but it's going to be super good. We'll take a look at this chicken. There we go. All right, so sorry for ignoring you for a second, but you kind of have to pay attention to this part because we want our sauce to reduce to the point that it's a sauce and not just like a liquidy broth, but you don't want to reduce it so much that you end up with like syrup, because there's a nice middle ground between having a good thick sauce and then just having a bunch of nearly burnt sugar. So this stuff is just about there, but you can tell if you drag like a spatula through it, you'll kind of have a trail behind your spatula showing you that it's a little thicker, whereas if it were water, obviously it would just fill up immediately. But the thicker you get it, the more of a trail you're going to have behind your spatula where you can see the pan underneath. And that's how you know you have a good sauce. So what we'll do is just take a nice little scoop of this rice. Use a small cup. Had these plates for like 15 years, so they got some cracks in them and some ugly ones. So what we'll do is just get a nice little pile of black rice here. So since I'm doing about a 2.5 size batch, I did a cup of rice. So if it were to be a just regular size recipe, you'd end up with about 3/4 cup of rice per person, which on this small plate looks like a ton, but it's really not that much. I mean, that's about enough for a piece with every bite in your chicken. It's hard to tell, but see if I can get it close enough. It does have that nice purple hue to it. It's not just a black void of nothingness. But we do have some good color there. So now let's see if I can get to look at this stuff from this angle a little bit. So we have our chicken. It's just been cooking in this sauce. We have that nice blackened color that we're looking for. Let me grab one of these bigger ones. And we'll just plop that right on there. Then just grab your regular old household spoon. And since we have those nice little chunks of like garlic and ginger and stuff in here, it's kind of hard to see, but you want to try to get some of those out too. We're just going to pour it over the top of our chicken. And if you're doing this for just like 2 people, you could basically just split the sauce and the chicken between the 2 people. I'm trying to make it so we have a correct portion size here. And then I would recommend like green onions for this. And I had some green onions in the fridge, and then we had tacos the other night and we used all the green onions that I had. But we also have these mixed nuts that I usually use for ice creams. But we'll just take some of these nuts. And this will add like a nice little protein punch as well. It's not going to give you that cool color that you're looking for, but since this is a Halloween themed dish, we do have a little orange and black. So we've got our orange chicken, black rice, and a little bit of nuts on top to add to that nutty flavor of the rice and the orange chicken. And that's it. That's how you make orange chicken and black rice.